Well, it's nice being here in the nets because we weren't quite sure how many test matches David Warner has played, so Kevin's just asked him because he stood over there. It's not just David Warner that has struggled with battles and matchups. These two have got some stats. Kevin, Pietersen could be a bit of a nemesis for you. 10 times he took your wickets. You averaged 21 against him.
Yeah.
You had a few issues with Harbhajan. How hard mentally is it? And do you go back to your room at night and thinking, geez, not this again. Do I need to change my technique? What do I do? It can be quite a lonely place, I imagine.
It becomes a lonely place, Wardy. It doesn't start a lonely place. There's no hiding place. The reason why I asked Warner there just how many test matches he has played, because if you've played for the length of time that he has played, and if you play 100 test matches, you've been through the ups and you've been through the downs. And those downs can be very, very lonely. And just on a personal front for him, this Warner issue is, the Broad issue is a big issue because the media have got a hold of it, the crowd have got a hold of it, and that becomes even more a problem. So when you're in the bright lights of international sport and the media start to go at a certain topic, even though you may not think it's a problem, it becomes a very big problem because it's all you read about, it's all you see, and also the added pressure that these guys have got now on social media. I mean, they're just getting cleaned up all the time. I mean, I'd hate to see what his social media looked like yesterday after Broad knocked him over again. So it becomes a real personal issue. And speaking from experience, I never thought Siddle was an issue until the media started to bring up one of the Ashes or one of the last ones that I played, that Siddle had knocked me over and I was Siddle's bunny, and it started to mentally become a problem. So I actually started to engage in the battle a little bit more, which even becomes more a problem because you start to concentrate even more on an issue which you didn't think was an issue. So again, statistics are one thing. I think I averaged 50 or 60 against the Aussies, but it's the amount of time that you also play against somebody that he then knocks you over. We did something with Atherton last night. Athers got knocked over, I think, 19 times by Glenn McGrath, but they played Australia a heck of a lot. Yeah, so they played them all the time. So these statistics can sway from side to side, but it depends on the opposition, depends how many times you face the guy, and if you're growing up with him and you're the same age group and you're playing for England against Australia, you play against guys a lot of the time.
Going back to your point, I mean, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a lonely place.
You've got your mates around.
You've got coaches around you, you've got guys around that you played a lot of your life with, and that's what your teammates are for. They're there for you to bounce ideas off about how you might be able to improve and get better against any type of bowler in any situation. And I think that's probably where the modern game's changed a little bit. I mean, I'm sure if Smith or Labuschagne were going through a rough trot, or they had one bowler that was troubling them, they'd be talking about it. They'd be trying to find a way. That's how close they are, and they're trying to help each other out. So, but you know, the personal battles. I mean, one thing that Kev said, he started to engage more in that personal battle. One of my great mantras as a player was batting is all against the bowler, right? So it's a one-on-one battle. But I never wanted to get too involved in that battle because I knew then if I made it personal, then I was going too far and I was getting outside of what I wanted to do. So it was about me sticking to my strengths, trusting myself and trusting my technique, and sometimes bowlers are going to get you out. I mean, the way that Harbhajan bowled, that might have matched up well to the way that I played and my technique. So, and it wasn't until the back half of my career where I started to work out little technical changes and things that I could work on to have a bit more success against that sort of bowling.
But you didn't make many technical changes at all, did you? You didn't go away from what had got you some success, as you just mentioned there. We've seen David Warner in the World Test Championship draw that line that you highlighted to try and keep his back foot parallel. We've seen him take probably a different guard to Stuart Broad in that first inning. Steve Smith is changing his technique. Do some players just have a particular proclivity to be able to do that mentally, to change in the middle of a series, in the middle of a game that you perhaps didn't have?
I think if you're a general tinkerer, then that becomes easier. If it's someone that's not a tinkerer and doesn't like changing things too much, I can imagine that would be a really hard thing to do mid-series. Going back to David Warner though, that's the best I've seen him look. Against that tight style of ball, against Stuart Broad, and he made another change again. He changed his guard, he was back on sort of leg stump, he was leaving his stumps open, so therefore he had more access to the ball. His alignment was better, he had better access to the ball, he was able to defend the ball a lot straighter down the ground and drive down the ground, and we saw late on day one the two beautiful cover drives that he got away. So those little changes had definitely worked for him. It hasn't worked for him on the scoreboard. He chopped one back on that he wouldn't have been overly happy with, but from what I saw in the first innings here, that little change that he's made, I think it will hold him in really good stead through this series.
Small sample size, I only played 5 test matches. McGrath had me on toast.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think clearly enough because of the pressure of an Ashes series and playing test match cricket to just go, hang on, what do I need to do to give myself a better chance? And that would probably have just been batted on off stump and then left everything and just been really patient. I didn't have the mental capacity to take myself out of the game and think clearly. Does that resonate?
Well, I was just going to say, it takes a great player to have the mental resolve to think about themselves when the battle becomes bigger than it actually should be. And that's obviously what the great players do. And this guy was one of the greatest that have played the game. And because he had that mental resolve to be able to take himself away from that battle. It wouldn't have been easy, because I don't believe you if you say that against Harbhajan, you weren't thinking, oh my goodness, it's Harbhajan Singh. I don't believe that for 1 second. And you can tell me if I'm talking nonsense.
I'll tell you after.
Exactly. There's my point. There is my point right there. So those battles are difficult. And when that guy comes on, because it's not, and it's also about your teammates. He talks about your teammates. Batting is an individual game. You are by yourself. It's in your bubble. And the media can pick you apart. Like they're picking Warner apart right now. They can alienate you from your whole team, and then your team knows about it. Everybody knows about it. So you're walking around the dressing room, and we've got cameras all over Warner. I mean, look at that camera. It's right next to Warner right now. He was standing right here when you talked about Broad and Warner, and he saw the screen, and it said there, Broad versus Warner. So these guys know about it. And I disagree again. It is a lonely place. Been there, it is very lonely when you start to get targeted.
You went through a period where it just looked like you couldn't quite work out any sort of game plan. Would that be a fair comment?
100% right. The way that I used to play compared to the way that I had to start playing. And this is all due to DRS. Gets the foot down the line of the ball, but because I'm 6'4", not out too far forward. You know, we all played in that area, too far forward. Then the dismissal started to happen where you started to get out given on the front foot. So my game had to change completely. I was a front foot player, front foot bully against spin. If it missed the bat, no problem, hits the pad, not out. And then get the old smack down the ground and get a couple drives away. But the game changed with DRS. As soon as Alimdar gave Tendulkar in Nagpur of Panesar, that LBW, the whole game of batting, I felt, changed for me.
What would you do differently then in that situation? Because I know you've been working with Joe Root over the years in terms of playing off the back foot. Would that have been an option for you? What is the advantage? Why is Joe able to do this seemingly so easy?
Well, he picks length unbelievably well. And there's a drill that I think we'll go to in a second in the nets, which helps you pick length.
Okay, well, you pop down there and get ready.
It was the one thing I was going to say. If you actually watch the way that Joe Root bats, and we did a split screen with him and Ollie Pope on day one, he doesn't commit too far forward. The further you commit forward early, looking to go down the track and use your feet, you then get stuck and you can't push back and play the ball as deep in your crease. If you watch the great players of spin, they don't premeditate going forward too much. They take a small step onto the front foot, and with that small step on the front foot, they're then able to play back quickly. But the further you lunge forward, it's then harder to push back and give yourself enough time to play off the back foot. The very, very best players of spin, and I'm sure this will come out here now, they don't get stuck between lengths. They either play the ball before it spins, or they play the ball after it spins. And I was one that got stuck in the middle in my career of playing the ball in the middle and sort of almost trying to predict where the ball was going to go. That's when the bat pads and the catches that slip come into play.
I want to talk to you about playing the short ball, because we've got Travis Head who's going to get peppered again in the second innings, but we'll come on to that in a minute. Right, what's this drill then that you were doing with the spinners?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to chuck the ball anywhere, and I'm not allowed to commit on the front foot. And I have to hit, and I have to hit every single ball through the offside.
What sort of length do you want?
Anywhere. You can chuck it anywhere. Water, you can really, really throw it down leg side, and I have to hit the ball through the offside. Okay. And the reason for that, if you throw it, so I got to hit it through the offside. Every single ball, all through the offside. And the reason for this is because I can't plant the front foot. And all those dismissals that you saw that I played there, I was on the front foot, committed on the front foot. Once you commit yourself on the front foot, you're all about hands. Where was Joe? Joe was on the back foot, playing it through the leg side, playing it through the offside, and it's all about picking length. And there's a drill for it. And like I said there, the old cliche, don't plant your front foot, use your bat, that's all nonsense, because a lot of players say, well, how do I do that? So the simple drill, hit every single ball through the offside, and you have to pick length. You cannot, I'll plant my front foot, throw a ball there if you can.
Right.
Right? So using your hands there is all you can do, and you start fishing. So all those dismissals that I had against Vittori, Shakavala-san, all of those, planting the front foot using the hands. Yet, if you chuck the same delivery and I went back, that's out, and that's absolutely fine, but that's not the length that I would go back to. That is a full length. You come down the wicket and you smack it. But any chance you get doing this drill, all it does is it helps you pick length, and that's what Joe Root is so good at.
Do one more. Shot. Right.
Not on the front foot.
Not on the front foot, right. What about Travis Head? World Test Championship got pumped. England have had a go with all those tactics again.
Yep.
What can he do better, or what advice would you be for him as one of the greatest players of the short ball the game's seen?
Work out the method that he wants to use, first and foremost, whether it's to be in a position to play the hook and the pull every ball, or if it's to try and get out of the way, or if it's to try and defend whichever balls are coming at him. I mean, he's a naturally aggressive player, right? So, but the best way to evade and to get out of the way of a short ball is actually look to hit it first. If you're looking to hit it, you're getting into better positions straight away. The minute you start thinking about like defending and ducking and weaving, that's when you get stuck. And you lose all your instincts and your scoring options go. So, I mean, the thing with Trap, one, he's got to be working on it on a daily basis, like going to the nets and doing it at proper pace, trying to work out what the best technique for you is to play that ball. But what I would say to him is get set, look to hit it, make a decision to get it out of the way if you can, but also understand in the middle of these spells might be 2 or 3 overs at max. So you're better off being at the other end. So you got to work out a way to get up the other end, and that's yesterday in comms. I was a little bit critical. One ball that Travis had defended in on the offside, there was a single there, and his mate Usman Khawaja hadn't backed up enough to get down there. Now Khawaja should be the one. As soon as Khawaja got on strike, the whole field, the whole game was changing as a result of that. And these bowlers, as we saw yesterday, if Khawaja can face most of that when that quick comes back, then Travis Head's job becomes a whole lot easier. So there's partnership batting involved in it all as well.
What drill? Can you give us a drill for the short ball? I mean, I'm going to give you this bat. This seems like sacrilege to give Ricky Ponting a grey nickels bat.
I'm not sure I can use it. Can I take the stickers off?
We haven't got time. We've only got 4.5 left on chat. Do you want to pop down there? Is there any? Do you want to hit a few?
I mean, when I talk about playing the pull hook and the pull shot well, it's all about what you do before the ball's bowled. You think back through the history of the game, all the best hookers and pullers, when the ball has been released, they've all had the toe of the bat above their hands, high, and therefore quite often above the bounce of the ball. Because if it's not, if you've got your bat, if the ball's halfway down and your bat and your hands are underneath the height of the ball, well, what can you do? You can only go one way. You can only go up, and you've got less time. So if the toe of the bat's up in the air, the bat is light. It's lighter than it is down here. Down here, the bat's heavy. You can feel all the weight in the bat. So up here, if the bat's lighter, you can move it faster. How does a baseballer stand? A baseballer stands like this. Why does he do that? Because he hasn't got time to get his hands from here to here to hit a pitch at the same sort of pace. So it's all about what you do pre-ball. Get set, get your hands a little bit high, get the toe of the bat high, then the bat's got less room to travel. Doesn't have to travel as far. And when I talk to young guys about practicing the pull shot, hit it as hard as you can every time.
Smash it.
Smash it. Hit it. Get set and smash it. Hit it as early as you can on full extension. I don't want to see any of this getting cramped up and hitting the ball late. If you're late, you hit the ball here. If you're early, you hit the ball down there. I'd much rather, when kids are doing drills or anyone's doing drills, I want to see them hitting the ball on the toe of the bat, because that means they're early on it rather than being late.
What about the difference in height as well? You're a bit taller than us too. Is that
Well,
an advantage?
He's a bit of a freak, isn't he, as far as world-class batters are concerned. Most of the best batsmen in the history of the game have been...
You counter that,
your height. Your height.
It's short. I said short. I did say short.
But I've said that to you before, and you said, no, there's some great batters. Chris Gallagher talking.
No, there is.
But you reckon the
Graham
better ones...
Smith, and
Matthew Hayden.
Maybe more, actually, in the more modern era, there's probably been more, where it's probably been more of a power-based...
I used to get myself down, right? So I had a really, really wide stance. So I didn't stand tall and really have that elevation, that level of elevation. Some of the other guys did, but even Graham Smith. What was Graham Smith? I mean, Biff was like this as well. He was really wide. So we really got ourselves down to a level where we could play and then also ride the short stuff.
What about selection going into a test match because of the matchup that we've been talking about? Mitchell Starc was left out. He's got a fantastic record against Johnny Bairstow. Should that come into thinking?
It's an interesting one, because if you start looking at matchup-based selections only, and for some reason, so Johnny Bairstow, if he's already out before someone's got a chance to bowl to him, or even someone like Joe Root, right? So I'd look at the stats coming into this game. Joe Root's been dismissed 6 times since 2022 to left-arm fast bowling. But if Australia had picked Mitchell Starc and Joe Root's out before he gets the chance to bowl to him, then that matchup's gone.
Right.
So but I mean it is where the modern game's going. It's a big thing, I think, for the captain and the analyst to actually try and find an advantage in your favour at all. Any little chink in the opposition armour, you've got to try and expose. And going back to those one-on-one battles as well, as a captain, you know, if Kev was coming to the wicket and I've got Peter Siddle in my attack, I know that matchup's a good one. He doesn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
As a captain, he's bowling the first ball.
Okay.
He is bowling the first ball because that you know how much it's inside his head. You know that Siddle will get his tail up. You know, like Broady yesterday. You know Broady's going to get his tail up when David Warner came in.
And
you
the
got
crowd,
the crowd going behind.
You can hear the crowd now. We're getting close to the start of day 3. I know you're dressed badly for this, and I know you haven't got your favourite kookaburra, but we've got to see you play the Ponting pull shot. Just one.
Come on, Punter.
With a jacket.
With a
and
jacket.
a mic on.
Microphone.
Come on, Punter.
Earpiece. Just
Make sure it's on the full.
It'll be. Come on, we've got to see the Ponting.
Come on, Punter.
We've got to see the Ponting pull shot. It's
Yes,
one of the
we
great
do.
shots in the
No,
game.
we have to.
So the things. So what my talking about the things I was talking about before, right? So my first movement was always here, and I was there, and then the ball was up, right?
Right, get that.
Front
We've got
foot,
30 seconds.
Front foot, back foot.
There we go. We
hit
got
it.
the Ponting pull shot. One more.
So I was on the front foot, back foot. hit it
There
early.
we go.